A 2-for-1 special is always fun to see. And well, it's even better when you could get one monitor with 2 different max refresh rates. Hey, I'm Nicholas from Rtings.com. Today we're reviewing the ASUS ROG Swift OLED PG32UCDP. It's a 4K 240Hz monitor with a dual mode feature that switches it to a 1080p 480Hz monitor. This is pretty useful if you want a high resolution for playing one game, but prefer a higher refresh rate for another. This isn't the first monitor with this feature, and it certainly isn't the last. Does ASUS succeed at double dipping, or is this monitor everything but a delight? First, let's look at the design. It's heavy on the gaming aesthetic with branding on the back and RGB lighting throughout, including a spotlight below the stand. It comes with different covers so you can change what it shows on your desk. Besides that, it's well made. Even the stand is solid and holds the screen well. There's a cutout to help keep your cables organized. You can adjust the screen in a few ways, but the range for each is limited, which is disappointing if you need to turn the screen for someone next to you. As for the inputs, you'll see that it offers a great selection. It has a DisplayPort 1.4 port and 2 HDMI 2.1 bandwidth ports, so you can connect a variety of devices. Unlike most monitors, it even has an optical audio output, which results in higher quality audio than if you were to use the audio jack. It has more useful features with its USB hub. The USB-C port supports DisplayPort Alt mode with 90 watts of power delivery, so you can connect your laptop and charge it with a single cable. There are also 3 USB-As to which you can attach other devices, like your mouse and keyboard. Lastly, it even has a KVM, so you can easily switch between 2 computers and use the same devices connected to the monitor, like that mouse and keyboard. Okay, let's move on to the picture quality, starting with the brightness. It gets bright enough to fight glare in most well-lit rooms. It even reduces glare well because the semi-gloss coating diffuses light. It's less hazy than a matte screen, but images aren't as clear as on a glossy screen. Also, it doesn't get bright enough to fight intense glare, like if you place it opposite a sunny window. As for HDR, it gets bright enough to make small highlights pop against the rest of the image, but larger highlights are dimmer, so they don't stand out as much. Luckily, it tracks the target PQ EOTF curve well, until there's a sharp cutoff at the max brightness. This means it lets highlights get the brightest they could. One thing to know is that there's a setting called uniform brightness. Turning it on actually limits the brightness, but for a reason. It keeps the brightness more consistent across different scenes or content, which is useful if you find that changes in brightness are too distracting. But turning it on also means you aren't making full use of the monitor. While it's fine to use in bright rooms, it really performs best in dark rooms. This is because it displays deep and inky blacks next to bright highlights, without any blooming either. On top of that, it builds off this incredible picture quality by displaying a wide range of colors in HDR. If you have the firmware updated, you can even adjust certain picture settings in HDR. This is a nice feature as most monitors lock you out of changing settings in HDR. As for SDR, it has an accurate mode called sRGB Cal mode. It locks colors well to the sRGB color space, but the white balance is off and gamma is too dark. There are a few gaming settings that you can't use with this mode. So if you want to use those settings and have accurate colors, calibrating it is the best option. On top of that, the accuracy is the same whether you're using the standard 4K mode or the 1080p mode. Another fantastic part of this monitor is the text clarity. When using the 4K mode, text looks very sharp. Although its subpixel layout is different from other monitors, there's almost no visible fringing around letters. However, text looks worse in the 1080p mode because the monitor is upscaling the lower resolution. It looks even worse if you use a 24.5 or 27-inch simulation modes with a 1080p resolution. So if you care about sharp text, just use the 4K mode. Up until now, we've mainly talked about good things regarding picture quality, but another thing to consider is the OLED boogeyman, burn-in. Burn-in is mainly a problem if you have static elements on the screen all the time, like the taskbar or desktop icons. Changing up what you do on your monitor reduces the risk of these things burning in. Plus, there are built-in settings which do help extend the life of your panel, like pixel cleaning and screen move. It even has screensaver and proximity sensor features that turn the screen off when there isn't movement or if you're away from it. Burn-in isn't so much of a concern if you vary the games you play too. Speaking of which, this monitor offers fantastic gaming performance. You can reach either the max 240Hz or 480Hz refresh rates with both DisplayPort and HDMI connections. Oh yeah, and if you're wondering, you can switch to the 1080p 480Hz mode by enabling frame rate boost. Besides that, it supports all common VRR formats in both modes to reduce screen tearing with any connection type. Moving on, the main advantage of using this for gaming is its near instant response time at any refresh rate. Motion looks incredibly sharp with any gamer content, including if you use the 4K or 1080p modes. It still has persistence blur at low refresh rates, and it has a black frame insertion feature to try to reduce this. However, it only works with fixed 120Hz signals, so you can't even use it at the same time as VRR. On top of its sharp motion, it also feels very responsive thanks to its low input lag. It's the same whether you're using the 4K or 1080p modes, but not if you use the 24.5 or 27-inch simulation modes. Those increase the input lag at lower refresh rates, so if your game requires quick reactions, it's better not to use them. Another plus for gaming is that it can take full advantage of the PS5 and Xbox Series X or S. There aren't any compatibility issues with those consoles. All fine and dandy, but one downside for gaming is the VRR flicker. This is a common problem with OLEDs like this, where there's distracting flicker in dark scenes with changing frame rates. Luckily, it has an OLED anti-flicker setting that reduces this flicker well. It actually looks better in the 1080p mode than the 4K mode with it on. But the trade-off of using the setting is that it introduces stutter. So now that we know how it performs, is it worth getting over other gaming monitors? The dual mode feature is definitely useful if you want such a high refresh rate. Plus, it makes the monitor versatile for playing different types of games. It also has everything you'd expect to find in a premium gaming monitor, like its sharp motion handling and remarkable picture quality. But getting this monitor or not really depends if you want to use the dual mode feature. If you do, its main competition is the LG 32GS95UEB. The ASUS has more perks like the KVM switch and USB-C port, so it's a good alternative if you want something with more features for multitasking. Besides that, both monitors perform similarly, but the ASUS actually has higher input lag with 60Hz signals. While choosing one over the other really comes down to price, the LG tends to cost less most of the time. If you don't want a monitor with the dual mode feature, there are other 4K 240Hz displays you could get for less. One of those is the MSI MPG32URX. It has a QD OLED panel with more vivid colors than the ASUS and performs similarly in terms of gaming with sharp motion. It usually costs less than the ASUS when it's available too, so it's something to consider. That's all for the ASUS ROG Swift OLED PG32UCDP. If you want more details on the monitor, check out our written review. The link is in the description below. Until next time, I'm Nicholas from Rtings.com, where we help you find the best product for your needs. Ciao.